Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And the New York Giants have traded for Isaiah Simmons. They traded a 7th-round pick for the 2020 top 10 pick. The guy who a lot of people said we should take over Andrew Thomas, hashtag we were right, is a New York Giant. Like an amazing athlete, kind of this, put him all over the field, but find a spot for him. Justin, we're going to talk about it. And there is a lot of negative to Isaiah Simmons' game, right? There's a reason why the Cardinals are giving up on this investment for a measly 7th-round pick. But from the Giants' point of view, to give up a 7th-round pick, which is, the only thing worse than that is a 7th-round comp pick, which the Giants don't have. So their lowest pick that they have for a guy who isn't failing because of athleticism or ability, to me, is a really fun trade for Joe Schoen, especially at a position where they really need help.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, Bobby Skinner. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Isaiah Simmons PPP. This is a move that does come full circle because, like you said, back in 2020, we were debating on is Isaiah Simmons worth a top 5, 4th overall pick of the draft, and now, lo and behold, a couple years later, we get him for a 7th-round pick. In a vacuum, this is a move, like you said, that will add depth to a linebacker room that has very little depth and also very little experience, and this overall move has very little risk. Open up the vacuum. We're getting an athlete who, at the time he was drafted, we're talking about how we've never, ever seen an athlete like him, right? At the time that we're approaching February, March, and especially after that combine, and he runs a 40-yard dash that's faster than Saquon Barkley, the overall storyline on Isaiah Simmons is this is an athlete at 6'4", 240, and runs a 4.3 that we've never seen an athlete like this ever before. And all offseason, we've talked about how on offense and defense, there was an organizational goal to get faster and more athletic. If nothing else, Isaiah Simmons is athletic, and he can be a very versatile player for this defense.
Yeah, and it's going to be exciting to see because I think his strengths match up with what Wink Martindale likes to do. Blitzing, being an athlete, and then man coverage, which I think is like where he can be at least consistent, where he's the best consistently. There's a lot of flash plays in the run, but there's a lot of negative in the run too. But Isaiah Simmons is 6'4", 240 pounds. He's only 25 years old, after entering year 4. He's had basically 100 tackles the last 2 years, 5.5 sacks the last 2 years combined, 10 tackles for loss, and a few interceptions. It's also no risk in the sense, well, there's, you risk a 7th-round pick, but the cap hit is only $1.01 million because his roster bonus has been paid out by the Cardinals already. So he's not only is he doesn't even fall into the top 53 or top 51 rule or whatever, I don't believe. But he's this amazing athlete, like you said, with the burst, range, and ability. And the reason he hasn't worked out for the Cardinals is not because of that athletic ability. That is there, and you see it flash all the time. There's great flash plays for Isaiah Simmons. There's great plays on film that you don't see linebackers play. It's just adding the consistency and not having the bad plays that are kind of consistently there for Simmons.
Now, you are having a conversation with a Cardinals reporter, that's going to be
Darren Urban.
And part of what I'm wondering right now, without listening to that interview yet, why was there such a need for him to change positions kind of year in and year out and never get settled in at one spot?
Well, the reality of it is he's never been very good in one role. Down the down linebacker, there's issues, he doesn't take on blocks well. He's bad with angles. He misses tackles. At safety, they tried him this year at deep safety, solely that. And that just was not a fit in the preseason. I don't think I never would have expected him to play as a deep safety consistently in the NFL. Really, last year was probably his best year doing it, where he played mostly as a nickel corner. That's probably what his best role is, which I think you're going to see a good amount. But the Giants, it's been reported the Giants think he's been misused by the Cardinals and that they view him as a linebacker, which I agree with, but he's going to be a linebacker who splits out with tight ends and stuff, as a quote unquote nickel corner. But let's just do a scouting report on him in the NFL and not what his draft process scouting report is. The amazing athlete, we talked about that 25 times already, with the burst, range, and agility. He's a bend. His ability to dip and slip blocks is beautiful, but he doesn't stack and shed. Like, he doesn't take blocks on head on at all. He will take bad angles to the run or underplay because he's not like working to go through the block. He's kind of only wins with speed. And he kind of just needs to play with more pop in general. Like, I don't think he's weak, but he just doesn't play with that pop that you want to see a linebacker play with. And he is a bad tackler. That shows up at no matter what position you put him at, whether that's in the box or in the open field. More so in the open field, but it shows up everywhere. And honestly, and this is talking about him as a linebacker, we could talk about coverage and stuff. There's plays where the effort's just not there. And that is also a part of the Cardinals trading him away, is that he wasn't the most motivated guy in the world. And that's going to be on this coaching staff in a contract year, to get that out of him.
Yeah, and another guy where I'm glad that this is a contract year for Isaiah Simmons, because the Cardinals did not pick up his fifth-year option. He's getting that $1 million this year, and the Giants will have an opportunity to bring him back next year, or he'll have an opportunity this year to be playing for another team and maybe get a little bit of a payday next year, which, I'm sure the former number 8 pick in the draft wants that for himself. So, yeah, like you said at the top, there's a reason why he was traded away for a 7th-round pick. And, even if you go back to the whole reflecting point of the Giants were able to get a 3rd-round pick for Kadarius Toney, who, yes, he had more years of control.
And a 6th.
And a 6th, who, yes, they had more years of control, Kadarius Toney does, than Isaiah Simmons, but Isaiah Simmons is a better football player than Kadarius Toney, because he actually plays games, and he has
at least more useful.
He has a year of 105 tackles. He has another year where I think he has 99 tackles. So Isaiah Simmons has played a lot of snaps in the NFL, especially over the last 2 years. It's still super exciting for him being in this defense because of his athleticism, because of his blitzing ability, and there's a big kind of question mark on what his role is going to be in this Wink Martindale defense. Here's a little stat. Simmons and just talking about his overall athleticism and how fast he is. Simmons has reached 20-plus miles per hour on 9 plays from scrimmage since being drafted in 2020, 4 more than any other linebacker in the NFL. That's per Next Gen Stats as well.
Well, let's talk about the things he's good at besides, the being able to shoot gaps and stack, or dip and make plays with bursts in the run game. And this is why it's like everyone's been saying, like, hey, this is a good fit for the Wink Martindale defense. First of all, his man coverage is good. Now, it's not perfect because a lot of times he's covering wide receivers and stuff, but his man coverage to me is pretty damn good. And he's physical, rerouting tight ends and stuff. There's a couple times where he put Derrick Henry on his ass, rerouting him, and he's able just to stay in the hip. I mean, there's reps against him going against like Keenan Allen, where he's step for step with those guys staying in their hip. You can put him in the A gap when, Wink shows those cover 0 looks, and he's able to carry the seam. Like, he can get out there and cover the tight end that's split out and run with that guy. So there's a lot there, and he's a good blitzer. And he's gotten better at that too in his career, where he was a solid pass rusher last year, whether it was working the corner. There's some times where he got free rushes and stuff, but Wink Martindale's going to get him those opportunities, and he's just got the speed, he's got the burst and range to finish on those plays, where other linebackers may pressure a quarterback on some of those unrushed looks, where Simmons will turn those into sacks. Or when, Brock Purdy was trying to throw the ball out of bounds on one play, and Simmons just freaking closes in on him. He also can force a fumble here or there. And then the other negative part is in zone coverage, he looks just totally lost sometimes. Like, totally lost. Like, I don't understand how you missed up this responsibility. So this is going to be a coaching job for Isaiah Simmons. But this coaching staff could be the greatest coaching staff in the world. The player has to go out and do it. Yep. And that is what, if you are looking at this from a Cardinals point of view, you're saying, I'm not betting on it. Because it's just like you see low effort plays, there's questions of work ethic, in the film room or in the locker room. And the fact that he's just never, they put him in all these different, the only position they really haven't put him in a ton is as an edge rusher.
Right. And, and even coming out of that 2020 draft, there was even a conversation by our guy Anthony Tomeno at the time was saying that, there is a team that maybe should try him a little bit at edge rusher or / putting him in more pass rushing situations. And over the course of his NFL career, he's played almost 2,300 snaps. Only 239 of them are pass rushing snaps. And not a lot of them are snaps where he's lining up as like this pseudo edge rusher, kind of, outside the tackle or directly on the tackle. Where this camp, I've seen the Giants do this with their interior linebackers, Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, especially with the first team, way more than I saw last year. Those interior linebackers are lining up as edge rushers in like this 2-point stance, and that's going to be clear cut. Isaiah Simmons, that is a great role for you. And I think you're going to see like the pass rush rate, the rate at which he's rushing the passer, that is definitely going to go up this year. And I guess the case for Isaiah Simmons, Bobby, like the case that he could like improve as a football player with the Giants, I'm going to read an excerpt from Cardinals.com and, an interview that Simmons was talking about. I don't really want to be playing linebacker, but I kind of want to be playing one position and settling down at one position. Because this was a talking point today about, Simmons is saying that he doesn't want to play linebacker. Let's read the full quote. "Where do you see yourself?" Simmons was asked, and he had a definite answer. "I told him I didn't want to play linebacker," Simmons said after Monday's practice. "I felt more comfortable getting back to things I had done in the past," which really in Clemson, he wasn't like a conventional linebacker. He was like a safety. It's easy to see now in training camp with Simmons ranging around the secondary. He's played deep safety most often, teaming up with Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson to give the Cardinals their strongest single defensive unit. Simmons also told this is the important part. Simmons also told head coach Jonathan Gannon and defense coordinator he wanted to master one position before working elsewhere, something he said they granted. If they came in here and said, "You're going to be a Mike linebacker," I would have done it to the best of my ability. I think they understood that maybe the design position I was supposed to be at, and I'm happy they let me come in and lock in on one position. And I think that's been a challenge throughout Isaiah Simmons' career, just in general, whether it's because of the player or it's because of the coaching staff and envisioning something different for him. I think Wink Martindale is going to let him settle down at one particular spot. He's not going to be relied upon to play 1,000 snaps this year like he's been the last 2 years. And I think that's going to help kind of unlock Isaiah Simmons hopefully a little bit.
And I think they should ease him in. Like, he should play the Tony Jefferson, Landon Collins big dime role for them. Which, hey, you're going to have some run reps, but you're going to be a lot of, man coverage type of stuff, whether it's covering a tight end or a running back. And like you said, I don't expect him to come in and be a full-time inside linebacker too over Micah McFadden right away. I would love to get to that point, but like for him, putting him in a new system, ease him in, because that has been an issue. It's like they've been trying to teach him all these different things and be versatile, and he's never been able to get something down, which is something we talked about out of the draft, Justin, where like versatility is nice. This dude needs to play one position and learn one position, because this is the NFL. You can't just win off of pure athleticism, which has been an issue for him.
And he has, yeah.
Now, the reports from Art Stapleton and others are that the Giants want him at linebacker in the box, which I do agree with. So he's going to have to be like, hey, if they tell me to play linebacker, I'm going to play linebacker, because I do think that's what's best for him, and that's what the coaching staff, at least reports, say is best for him too.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of him not wanting to play linebacker. I do think it's a matter of him wanting to settle down at one position. That's what I think. And even, you look at the Cardinals, how many first-round picks have they spent on interior linebacker? There's even a chance
they move all their position. They move, like Zaven Collins moved the edge.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a mess over there. Bobby, I want to keep talking about Isaiah Simmons, maybe projecting what it means for the rest of the roster. But before we do, today's episode
talk about Chris's Coffee.
Oh, threw me off.
Chris's Coffee is a family-run, local, New York-based coffee roaster and the leading importer of Italian-made espresso machines and service provider. They really are like the best coffee company ever. The coffee is from bean to brew, meaning that they import their own beans in-house, roast it, pack it, and ship it right to you. I know I've told the story, but I brought it over to my parents, and we had family over, and we all had a cup of Chris's Coffee, and they're like, this is really good. So I went and ordered them some more, because I want them to be loyal Chris's Coffee drinkers. Their roasting capacity at their brand new 64,000 square foot facility is now upwards of 2,300 pounds of coffee per hour. I could drink 1,000 pounds of coffee per hour. Am I right? Chris's Coffee also sells coffee grinders, blenders, brewers, filters, teas, syrups, replacement parts, and everything you need to get your home espresso setup off the ground. Bike parts and shit. And beginning today, use the code JOHNBOY at checkout to receive a free 1-pound bag of our brand new Giant Java coffee with any order over $50. Plus free shipping. Discounts can't be combined with any other offers. If you're in the market for an espresso machine, grinder, or just a great tasting coffee, talk to the espresso coffee experts at www.chriscoffee.com. So it's not necessarily Chris's Coffee, it's Chris Coffee. chriscoffee.com. They've assembled a passionate world-class sales team eager to help guide you on your espresso journey. You'll be glad you did.
Bobby Skinner, you'll be glad you did.
Now let's just talk about it. Do you think by year's end we're going to be talking about how wonderful Isaiah Simmons is?
No, because I think Micah McFadden is still going to be the second interior linebacker on this team. I don't think Isaiah Simmons is going to be getting the same opportunities as he did in the past. He'd be a guy that he'd be 1,000 snap player the last 2 years. I don't think he's going to be able to put up those numbers unless guys get hurt and then his role increases. So no, I don't think we are.
Yeah, I mean his usage has been last year he played cornerback 49% of the time, linebacker 33%. And then the year before was linebacker 58%, edge 23%, cornerback 18%, and then a couple snaps at safety.
Which that is crazy, by the way. Last year, I watched the Vikings-Cardinals game last year because I remember he played well against the Vikings in 2021. I actually made a JM football about it in 2021, and I retweeted it from Talking Giants today. I was like, oh, I checked in on Isaiah Simmons. He had a good game. So I checked in on Isaiah Simmons versus the Cardinals in 2022. First 4 plays of the game, he's following Adam Thielen in motion and lining up in the slot. He's lining up as a slot corner, and then he's covering Justin Jefferson in the slot, allowed a big explosive play because this 6'4", 240-pound supposedly linebacker / safety is playing slot corner against Justin Jefferson. It was so crazy. It was crazy what they were asking him to do last year. I understand hey, if you don't view him as a linebacker, or maybe you don't view him as I don't know, but was slot corner really the answer there? And the fact that that's what he survived at last year without, I guess, not being a total catastrophe is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you can't put him up against the best receivers when they're lining up in the slot, but
you can't put him against any slot receivers, really, in my opinion. He's not a slot corner. Yeah,
but I'm saying you could split him out in zone and stuff like that, and then you put him on a tight end that flanks out. He can do a really good job of man coverage, and that's why with this coaching staff, hey, they're going to ask him to blitz and play man coverage, which is the best roles for Isaiah Simmons, and hopefully he can grow into an every down player. But right now, I view him as kind of a situational player, and they traded a 7th round pick for him. I also am not buying into this coaching staff will just fix him and turn him into an amazing player. This isn't. One, his position coach isn't Andre Patterson or Jerome Henderson. The linebacker coach, Coach Eggs. I don't know how good it's hard to judge position coaches, but there's no evidence of him being a great position coach. And also, as much as Wink Martindale is going to put him in those man coverage and blitzing roles, Wink Martindale at one time loved Patrick Queen, and Patrick Queen struggled a lot under Wink Martindale too. So this coaching staff can't work magic, right? They're good. They can be a good coaching staff. They can get the most out of guys. But if Isaiah Simmons wants to be more than a situational player, a guy who's playing, 40 to 60% snaps at max to start for the Giants, he's got to get better at playing flat out linebacker. You got to take on the offensive lineman. You got to study angles as a tackler. You can't have those negative plays or you're going to be taken off the field. No longer are you playing for a team that invested a 1st round pick in you. You're playing for a team that invested a 7th round pick and $1 million. There's no investment there's very little investment from the Giants' end, which is why I love this trade. But for Isaiah Simmons, if a new coaching staff for the Cardinals wasn't a wake up call, this is a wake up call for Isaiah Simmons because he has another year like last year. He's getting less than $5 million on a contract.
Yeah, reasons I'm really excited for Isaiah Simmons is him being versatile, him being a weapon, him lining up in the A gap on third down, and the untouched pressures that Wink Martindale can scheme up, where you're lining him up in the field and you don't know what he's going to do and you don't know where he's going to go. Like, I'm excited about him being like that kind of ace in the hole more than I am excited about him being an every down player. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I hope he does get there, which leads to my next question. Do you believe Isaiah Simmons will be a Giants player in 2024?
It's really tough to say without seeing his role.
Here's why I don't think it is, though. Here's why I'm very confident. That even if he struggles, they'll want to bring him back on a cheap deal.
They will want to?
Yeah, because he's not going to go out and get big money unless people are still paying him for the draft pedigree, which I don't see happening. So even if he struggles, they're going to like, all right, well, we'll be the team that brings you back for another year. There's no reason not to. And if he plays well, then they're going to want to keep him. So I think that he is a Giant in 2000. I'm pretty confident in that. And hopefully we're paying him some decent money. Like, that's my hope, is we're paying this guy some decent money at the end of the year. Like, he makes growth as a linebacker.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. Like, I don't know, Bobby. If he's going to be back in Giants blue next year, then it means that he's playing linebacker well, which is the same thing I said during the pre-draft evaluation. It was one of my better takes of like pre-draft evals about like a top 10 pick who everybody was like, oh, this guy's awesome. This guy's great generational talent. And I'm glad, even younger me in 2020 pushed back on it, being like, you got to play a position, Pop. Like we got to pick a position here, and you got to learn it, and you got to play it well, because that's kind of how the NFL works. And now we're 4 years into Isaiah Simmons' career, and we still haven't found that position. So if he's back in Giants blue, which I'm rooting for, you root for the guys in blue, that means that he has adjusted to playing linebacker better than he has right now.
But even if he struggles, I think you bring him back on the cheapest deal, on a cheap deal, because he's that talent.
Do you think he would get like Isaiah Simmons, former top 10 pick? You know what they always say about those former first round picks is they'll keep getting chances. We traded B.J. Hill for Billy Price, for crying out loud. He was a former first round pick.
Yeah, I'd rather us be the team that gives him that chance. Unless it's like paying him $6 million a year or something like that.
Right, which he may get because of his athleticism. No, I'm not saying $6 million, but he may get more than what we're willing to pay. Which again, I hate talking about this now when we're not even seeing him on the field. We don't even know what his role is.
Well, even if he struggles, like, I want to give him another year in this defense, right? Like, he's like, again, we're not talking about a guy whose athleticism doesn't transfer to the NFL. We're talking about a guy like his athleticism is elite. And I wouldn't want to give up on that on a year of struggles in a new defense, being traded at the end of training camp. Less than a week away from cutdown day. So like it's going to be an uphill battle for him. So I'd like to give him as many chances as possible.
Yeah, for sure. So again, I want to talk about this too. I didn't talk about this enough. So I talked about 239 pass rush snaps and pass rush opportunities. He has a total of, on Pro Football Reference, 11 QB hits, 7.5 sacks, and seven forced fumbles. Not that all those forced fumbles came on pass rushing opportunities, but that's pretty good. And I am excited for that number to go up this year, those pass rush snaps, and him get after the quarterback. Like, that should be, like, right now coming in, especially as, not knowing the playbook all that much. The priority should be telling Isaiah Simmons to just go and attack and not think all that much. Like, go attack, be an athlete.
I want to actually look something up. You pique my interest. But also, so I just want to do a draft compensation update. The Giants now only have 6 picks. They have their first through 6th round pick. They don't have any extra picks. They haven't lost any picks besides this 7th round pick. And they're not in line to get any comp picks this year either. Before we get into, why don't you read an ad before we get into an interview with the Cardinals reporter while I look up this number?
Yes, today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. They're also the presenting sponsor of the show, if you didn't know that. We're super thankful to SeatGeek. And if you didn't know what SeatGeek is, what are you doing? They're a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super simple. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek they are the #1 rated ticketing app in the world. You hear me throw out a pop a couple minutes ago?
Yeah, what the hell was that?
Joe's McFly, Jake Surielli. I felt like I needed to say it. Felt like Isaiah Simmons really brought it out of me. So shout out to them, and shout out to SeatGeek, because there are more than 70,000 events every single day on SeatGeek, including sports, concerts, festivals, and more. There is another rival ticketing app that shall remain nameless, that the Giants use as their provider, and I hate them right now because I can't access my tickets correctly, and it's a whole battle that I'm fighting with the Giants, and they say, well, they're fighting it with the ticket provider. You want to know who I wouldn't have that problem with? SeatGeek. So SeatGeek, let's go. Let's contact the Giants, and let's get on being their official ticket provider, because I know I'd be able to access my tickets at all times. SeatGeek, they got the hookup. Use code Giants for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code Giants. Click the link in the description to download the app. I've never had a problem with SeatGeek. Bobby Skinner, you'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. And here is Darren Urban, who covers the Cardinals. I would now welcome onto the program Darren Urban, covers the Arizona Cardinals. Usually when the Giants sign players, we can get a pretty good read on them, but we'll have people on to help us. With Isaiah Simmons in particular, I feel like it's just kind of hard to get a read on what he is. And I mean, that's kind of my first question is, like, what is Isaiah Simmons going into year 4 in the NFL?
Well, I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, I think that's a big reason why he is now a Giant instead of a Cardinal, because they had trouble figuring out what that might be. When he was drafted, when he came out in 2020, there was a lot of talk with how versatile he could be. He very much embraced that role, talked many times about wanting to be able to do all these things and feeling like he was confident enough that he could. The idea was that he would become a rangy inside linebacker in this team's 3-4 defense that could go cover tight ends, that could go sideline to sideline, that could make these tackles, and it never really quite worked out. They also drafted Zaven Collins in the first round in 2021, and they were going to pair those two together as inside linebackers. And now we got to this year with a new coaching staff, the Eagle guys who did the Eagles defense last year, and Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rollis. And they moved Zaven Collins to an outside linebacker, and they moved Isaiah to safety. Now, couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago in training camp, Isaiah Simmons did a press conference and talked to us, and had mentioned the fact that the coaches asked him, what he might be most comfortable with. Because the idea was, we're going to put you in one place and have you get really good at that, rather than have you worry about other positions and see if that might unlock some things. And Isaiah came clean to us, and he said, I told them I'd rather not be a linebacker, that he felt more comfortable in the secondary. So they moved him. He was playing deep safety, essentially, deep free safety, in a lot of formations when he was playing, with Budda Baker, who's a Pro Bowl safety, and Jalen Thompson, who I think can become that, who is their other safety. And they were basically trying to do a 3 safety look. Jalen Thompson was going to have to play more nickel than normal if that's how they decided to go with it. And last year, Simmons ended up playing a lot more nickel than any other position in his snaps, because that was just the place he kind of ended up where they felt like it would work the best. And there's no question Isaiah Simmons is ultra talented, and there's no question that he can make some splash and flash plays. The problem is the consistency, being able to do things on a regular basis. He struggled against the Chiefs in the second preseason game, with lost into coverage and didn't finish off a play at the goal line. And not that was the reason he was traded, but I think in a lot of ways it just kind of underscored I guess the confusion, just the struggles of this team trying to find a place for him.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through a few games of film on him so far, and it's, as Giants fans, we had the 4th pick that year, and the debate was offensive tackle versus Isaiah Simmons. And one of the sticking points we kind of had with Simmons is, like, it's great to be versatile, but he kind of needs to learn a position and play it in the NFL, and they're finally let him do that, and didn't fit there. What is the position, though, that you think he does fit best at?
I think that's a great question. It feels like every time he's gone to a position and people say this, then they're like, well, why don't you put him here and that'll work? It's funny. I've seen a lot of social media reaction. There's a lot of fans that are upset that they gave up on Isaiah Simmons at this point. But he was going to be a free agent after the season, and I'm not sure he would have returned. So I kind of get it. But they're all like, why didn't you make him a pass rusher? Why didn't you just put him outside and let him rush the passer? I mean, he's definitely got some skills in that regard, but at 6'4" and about 240 or 235, is he going to be able to get off those tackles and consistently rush the passer like that? Again, Isaiah himself was hoping to be moved back where he could kind of like float and make plays like where they had put him. And that wasn't quite working. And he wasn't quite at the inside linebacker. I don't know if I mean, better people than I have tried to find that place, and I'm not sure where it goes. But again, I keep seeing these people that saying, "Oh, make him rush the passer." Whereas again, I bring up just a couple of weeks ago, he just said, "I don't really want to play linebacker." So, are you going to put him back at linebacker? I mean, he's going to go now wherever he needs to go, but I don't know if he's comfortable there. It's hard to really nail it down.
Yeah, I think that is a good, like, he just doesn't really look very comfortable at linebacker. Where I do think he looks the best was playing in man coverage, right? And then in zone coverage, there would be times where he's totally lost. Is that a accurate assessment?
He had some good times doing that, but like for instance, last year they tried to put him up. He struggled against the Chiefs in the opener, and a lot of people struggle against Patrick Mahomes, and specifically you're trying to cover Travis Kelce, but that just didn't work. There have been times when he is in man to man, he doesn't necessarily keep his leverage where it's supposed to be. Again, do I think he can do it? Yes. But he needs to find that consistency, and that consistency just wasn't ever there. And who knows? Maybe this is a wake up call, but again, I don't know. I don't know what the issue necessarily would be that he couldn't do these things or couldn't find this place. I don't know if it's a study thing, if it's just a comprehension thing, if it's just whatever. I can't. I don't even know where to start with what would be wrong in terms of figuring it out. I just know that these guys have tried for a number of years, and now, again, people say, "Oh, he gets a fresh start in New York." Well, he essentially got a fresh start here. He
Right.
got a brand new GM and a brand new coaching staff that basically let him help decide where he was going to play, and it still didn't work. So, I guess we'll see.
My last thing will be there, and a lot of times in zone coverage, you see just like lost, like totally lost, which you shouldn't see. There's times where linebackers will not make plays, but they look lost, and then there's some other times where it's like look a little lackadaisical to the ball. Was there any rumblings of like maybe he didn't take the film serious or practice serious or was unhappy, because it kind of shows up a little bit.
I haven't necessarily heard any of that, but I mean, again, you go by something has to be there on the tape, and he's awful athletic and talented to have it be just strictly he
Right.
doesn't have the ability. So I don't know how that really went exactly. I think Isaiah Simmons is a very smart guy. Um, and when you talk to him, I mean, like when he does interviews, he comes across as very intelligent. Um, where he needs to be exactly for some of that stuff, maybe he does need to grow a little bit in those areas. And certainly, I think this is going to. I mean, between the fact that he was traded and has to go cross country, and knowing, and he knew this anyways, that after they didn't pick up his fifth-year option in the spring, like he's playing for a contract this year, which he's talked about. Like, I don't think there can be any more motivation. If it's going to happen, I would think it would happen now. I guess we'll just find out if the Giants have that key to unlock whatever it is that he might be able to be on this level.
All right, Darren, I appreciate you jumping on. Maybe the Giants play the Cardinals week 2, I believe,
Big
right?
two. Yeah,
So maybe we'll see you again then. And
possible.
I'm sure Giants fans or Cardinals fans will be dunking on each other one way or the other. So,
Well, I certainly would expect Isaiah Simmons to be at this point looking forward to that game, but we'll see how it plays out. Because I'm curious, to be honest, and maybe you would have a better answer on this. Like for me, coming in this late in the game, like how easy is it going to be to fit him into what they're doing defensively quickly?
yeah, see, Wink Martindale likes to run a lot of dime packages and stuff, and they use Tony Jefferson and Landon Collins as kind of like those big dime packages. I can see that being a role for him right away. But going through the film, and I hate to, because Giants fans are excited because he is an amazing athlete, and a lot of people really wanted him in 2020. But it's like you do see more bad film than good film, and there's a lot of faith in this coaching staff. But the players got to go out there and do it. So, I think the role right away would kind of be like that big dime linebacker who can go out there and play some man coverage on third down and stuff, and ease them in that way.
I'm going to be fascinated to see how it plays out. Obviously, this team, although Hassan Reddick had a lot of success in his final year here before leaving as a free agent, but there's a lot of fans here fearful that Isaiah Simmons is going to go be another Hassan Reddick leaving here. I don't quite see the parallels. There's some other stuff.
Yeah, Reddick was good.
Yeah, Reddick showed he was good before he left. They just weren't able to re-sign him. Whereas, I know fans here are frustrated. They only got a 7th round pick for Isaiah Simmons, but I'm guessing that the Giants weren't the only team the Cardinals were offering Isaiah Simmons up to. And if you're only getting a 7th round pick, it says a little bit about where the rest of the league sees him right now too. So I think the rest of the league is very anxious to see exactly what kind of steps Isaiah Simmons can take on in the next little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. It's like Reddick was good before. Like Giants fans know this too. 2019, he had 4 sacks against the Giants in that game. And weirdly, he played well for Carolina and still didn't get the deal that he was going. And then obviously had the year he did for Philly. So I think that's just a league issue more so than just a solely Cardinals issue. But appreciate you jumping on, man. Hopefully we'll see you week 2.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you to Darren Urban for coming on the show, shedding some light on Isaiah Simmons. And before we get to talking to Patricia Traina, we got to talk about Manscaped. Today's show is brought to you by Manscaped. Public service announcement. PSA, some say. If you didn't already know, Manscaped now sells beard products. What? The leaders in below-the-waist grooming changed the game with their brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. And they're going a step further with their brand new Handyman, an electric face shaver for a quick and convenient way to achieve a clean shaven look. I need it. I have a little bit of the neck beard going on because I can't actually grow a beard. So guess what? I should leave here. I should take out that Handyman, do a quick little shave, quick little raise. I think it's actually right here. I have it right here, right in front of me. Boom, right here. The Handyman. And I will get all ready to rock and roll on my Friday. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code GIANTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. When you use promo code GIANTS, hit the refresh button with Manscaped. Here is Patricia Traina. All right, welcome back to the show, and we want to welcome on to the show Patricia Traina. Patricia Traina, welcome. We originally were going to record this at 11 a.m. It is 2 p.m. right now. 10:30 a.m., we basically get the whole news and notifications that the Giants have traded for Isaiah Simmons. They gave up a 7th round pick. So how are you doing? Thank you for joining us, and we'll get right to it.
Thanks for having me. First off, it's always a pleasure to be with you two fine gentlemen. How am I doing? I'm going crazy right now. I did not expect the news of Isaiah Simmons. Very pleasant news, I might add.
So we were supposed to record with you like 20 minutes after it happened.
Yeah, exactly.
We put together all these questions, and then it's like, okay, we're going to have to cut out some questions, and we're going to have to push this back because our mind is spinning right now.
Yeah, and of course, we all had to do our late-breaking news and everything like that. So, but we're all caught up. I think most of us are, except for me. I'm still trying to catch up, but I'll get caught up before I have to call it a day today. I've got an early day due to an event that I got to go to, but I'll get caught up and it'll be fine.
Yeah. So we recorded like our first half of the show where we kind of like talked about Simmons as a player, but Any insight that you have on what his role might look like with the Giants, since he's already played in so many positions, kind of like in college and at the NFL level? So do you have any insight on where the Giants are thinking that they might line him up in Wink's defense?
I think he's probably going to have a role very similar to what you saw Tony Jefferson have in Wink's defense down in Baltimore. This is a role that they tried to replicate last year. I think they tried it with Jefferson. I think they tried it with Landon Collins. Didn't really have much success with either case. So Isaiah Simmons, I think he's 25 years old, fresher legs. The Cardinals really didn't use him the right way, I think, down there. And, here's the best thing about it. He's coming in last year of his rookie deal. So he's only going to cost the Giants, I believe, $1.01 million, which is cheap. Some people will say, oh my God, that's a 1-year rental. Well, no, if he delivers, then you can obviously extend him. But I think it's a humongous upgrade. I think it solves several problems where there were maybe question marks on the depth. Inside linebacker, I think it solves a problem on outside, the edge rusher. Slot cornerback, he can play in the slot. So I think it's probably sayonara Darnay Holmes. I think that clinches it. So yeah, just a versatile player. And again, I think he's going to be that Tony Jefferson hybrid safety / linebacker.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because they're like, as exciting as it is for a Giants fan, is there's also a reason the team that drafted in the top 10 trading for the 7th round pick. Like there's honestly a lot more bad on his film than there is good, but you would hope that this coaching staff and their blitzing style, like he kind of fits what they want to do. And he's not being traded because he's not still an amazing athlete. Like that stuff's still there. So can they harness that with him? I hope they find more of a home for him at a position, because I think that's been part of his issues. He's never really been able to lock in at one thing. But we talked about Isaiah Simmons a ton at the top of this show, so I do want to talk about some of the other stuff now that we have you on. You've been at some of the last camp practices. What is something that stood out to you the most?
First off, I got to comment on the speed. I mean, we talked about the lack of speed last year and how that was a problem on both sides of the ball. We're seeing speed on both sides of the ball this year. I mean, offense, Jalen Hyatt. I mean, can we talk about how good that young man has looked? Splitting coverages. I mean, my gosh, have you guys noticed that guys like Jalen Hyatt are getting open? I mean, did we see a lot of that last year with giant receivers getting open down the field? Darren Waller has looked good. He creates or attracts a crowd every time he goes down the field. And we're seeing Danny Dollars, as I call him, play with swagger. I mean, this is a guy who looks more comfortable than ever before. I don't think I've ever seen Daniel Jones look this good. I know it's preseason and the naysayers are going to say, well, talk to me in September when they face Dallas and Frisco and, all the, Buffalo and the other good teams. Folks, this is a good start for the Giants offense. They've got speed on that side of the ball. They've got a confident quarterback. And I think good things are going to happen there. And then on defense, again, they have speed. And oh, by the way, their run defense so far has looked light years better than it did last year, with linebackers coming up and filling holes. Bobby Okereke has been a godsend. I think the addition of Simmons will help as well. But this is a Giants team that has significantly upgraded speed, better skill sets, better fits, and they can now play matchup football, which they really couldn't do a whole lot of, last year. They didn't really have everything they needed. So now they can play better matchup football.
You mentioned Daniel Jones, and you mentioned Daniel Jones looking confident and comfortable, which I'm really glad you brought up, because one of the things I wanted to ask you is, how has Daniel Jones carried himself differently this camp compared to past years? And I know that's, he may even be a little bit more comfortable behind the microphone sometimes too. So do you feel like there's a difference in the way that he's carrying himself this camp? Maybe even just outside of, because we know he's had a good camp on the field.
Yeah, I definitely see it. I mean, Daniel is trying not to be, cocky, for lack of a better term. He's still trying to be, cool, understated, that Eli Manning cool. Eli never changed, even when he was playing at the top of his game. Daniel's trying to stay that way. But you can't help but notice just in how Daniel Jones is navigating the huddle, commanding the huddle, bringing guys to the line of scrimmage, how he's, some of the quips he makes in his pressers. You're starting to see a little bit more of a personality, that of a young man who is more confident in his role, a guy who's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I got the big contract. I'm not just going to sit back on my butt and collect the money. I'm going to show people that I am indeed worth it. So I really like that about him. And I think, he could have a really good year for them. And, assuming everybody, of course, stays healthy, that's the big if. We know what this team's injury history is like. But yeah, Daniel is definitely carrying himself a little bit differently, I think, this year than in years past.
You mentioned the speed, the receivers, and the improvements on offense. The one thing that has been a little understated, because you're not going to run the ball a ton in training camp practices, and you're not going to see like different types of run fits in preseason football, where it's kind of just you're just playing straight up most of the time. The run defense improvement, I think, will be one of the storytellers of how successful this New York Giants defense can be. Like, how good is Okereke? What do the additions of Ashawn Robinson and Nacho do for this defense? Like you mentioned, can Simmons come in and play a role as a weak side linebacker? So, I think that is one of the more important talking points coming out of this Giants training camp. Now, Here's another thing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're spot on.
Here's the thing I've been the most frustrated with. We are entering, I think, the third year out of 4 years where the New York Giants coaching staff wants to rotate guards. And now, 5 weeks in, 31-year-old Mark Lewinsky is practicing at left guard as part of the evaluation. Mike Kafka has said, ideally you want to find your best five. We're 4 or 5 weeks in the camp. These are all guys that have been here for a while. Do they do what 99% of people think is best and play five, or are they going to work a rotation?
Well, before I answer that question, let me ask you something. Last year, when injuries hit the interior of the offensive line, what happened? Do you remember? Well, they struggled. Remember, they had some
when
issues.
When Ben Bredesen went down, Azudu went in, and then Azudu got injured, and they had Lemieux and...
Right. And they never got consistency because a lot of those guys were inexperienced. So this is just a theory on my part. I do think the coaching staff has a pretty good idea which five guys they want to roll with. That being said, I think one of the reasons why you have seen a lot of rotation at guard is to get these guys experience in the event of an injury. So, for example, last year, Ben Bredesen played 30 snaps at center? And now they've got John Michael Schmitz. So they're probably saying to themselves, okay, Bredesen can give us snaps at left guard. He can give us snaps at right guard. Let's get him some more work at center. Let's get him, some preseason snaps and whatnot to get him that experience. And I think they're doing the same thing with, Glowinski, just to move guys around. So again, it goes back to playing matchup football if they need to do that, on the offensive line. And here's the other thing. Azudu was a guy that I think they want ultimately to be their future left starting guard. But the only way you're going to find out for sure is you got to play him. So these snaps, these rotational snaps during the preseason are kind of a necessary evil if you think about it. So come Dallas, I would be very surprised. And speaking of Dallas, I'll throw this at you. If you're a conspiracy theorist, why give the Cowboys an opportunity to get a beat on who your starting five is going to be? Why not keep them guessing? So, I mean, I'm not saying that's what Dable's doing, but I wouldn't put it past him if he is. But I think come week 1 against Dallas, they will have a set line because that Dallas defensive front is really good. And I don't think they're going to mess around with rotating guys. And I'd be very surprised if that were the case.
Yeah, I'm at a point now where I'd be surprised if it's not. Here's my issue is if it was about getting guys experience, like the one thing that would make sense would be getting Ben Bredesen practice at center because they don't have a true backup center on the team. But that's stopped happening for over 2 weeks now. Ben Bredesen isn't taking center reps at all anymore. So, that's the one where it makes sense. Hey, they need to have someone who's comfortable at backup center, but he's not getting backup center reps like he got, the first week of practice. And then for me, in what scenario does Mark Lewinsky play left guard besides if they truly make him the backup? But, is he like? I don't see that happening. Like, and why is that happening 5 weeks into camp? So to me, it's just a lot of inconsistencies with what they're saying and what they're doing, and just conventional wisdom of the rotation. To where, at this point, I just like it. To me, I asked the question. I just don't know how it benefits you, unless it's just simply the Cowboys letting them know. But you've let them know at every other position on the team. Whoever the left guard, I don't think they're changing too much of their game plan. So that's where I'm kind of like at wit's end with this.
Right.
And it also stinks that Dable will never give a proper explanation as to what the actual goal is.
Well, because the answer is they invested in two guys, and the guy they didn't is playing better than both of them.
Yeah.
Right. No, and you guys make a good point, but again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, just from covering Dable and how he can be kind of crafty and people don't realize it. Look, we can probably all agree that it starts in the trenches, right? If you get beat in the trenches, you might as well just take your ball and go home. So why give the Cowboys any kind of early advantage and saying, okay, we know who the starting five are going to be? If you're the Giants, what harm does it do? Like, okay, Bobby, you mentioned we haven't seen Bredesen playing.
They got to gel with each other. That's something that all offensive line
which they do.
About.
But to your point about, we haven't seen Bredesen play center in a couple of weeks. Maybe they've seen all they need to see from him, and they're like, okay, let's get Schmitz up and running and feeling comfortable, facing blitzes and stunts and all that stuff. We've seen what we need to see from Bredesen. Let's get the rookie ready to go because, he's got a little bit more of a learning curve than, say, Bredesen. So, I'm just throwing this out as a scenario. I don't know this to be fact. This is just me kind of looking at a different angle, if you will. But Dable, he's not going to come right out, and he's yet to do it. The next time he does it, it'll be the first time. He's not going to come right out and say, okay, these are my starting five guys, because now you're tipping off the opponent to get a jump start on stuff. So why not keep them guessing? I still say that they know. They've got to know at this point. And to your point about gelling, I think a lot of people also forget that, during training camp, a lot of times the team has a morning walkthrough before they actually hit the field. They have the meetings and stuff like that. So there are opportunities, certainly nothing like, putting the pads on and knocking heads against the defensive linemen, but there are other things they do to get the unit to gel to where they're communicating both verbally and non-verbally and being on the same page. So we'll have to see how it plays out, but I do think they have an idea of what they want to do.
Yeah, I just seen these guards really struggle on combos getting the linebackers in preseason and stuff. And they rotated in the playoff game last year. But we're getting towards cutdown day. Who do you see being your most surprising cut?
Cam Brown.
Really?
Yes.
And who do you see like kind of taking that role?
Well, here's the thing. Let me tell you why I see Cam Brown as being a surprising cut. He hasn't really given them much on defense as a linebacker. Good special teams player, but last year, did he have any impactful special teams plays? I can't think of any. I think he finished second on the team with 6 total tackles, or I think it was 6, and I think 3 of them were solo. I believe Carter Coughlin finished as the team leader in special team sacks. A little bit better special teamer and a guy who can give them snaps at linebacker. So even though Cam Brown was a special teams captain last year, now and you say, oh, well, he's got great length and speed and all that stuff. Well, hey, hi, Bryce Ford Wheaton. He can do the same thing. He brings the same characteristics. I just have a feeling that Cam Brown's going to be expendable, given all those factors.
Yeah, plus you add Isaiah Simmons too.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned Bryce Ford Wheaton, and the wide receiver room is pretty cloudy and interesting too. And there's a lot of names in there, but nobody really provides that special teams value, at least, if we're talking about Bryce Ford Wheaton not being on the team. So this even includes like 2 guys that we think that are making it, but are they? Sterling Shepard and Cole Beasley. What's the kind of status of both of those guys?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's going to depend on what happens with Wan'Dale Robinson. We heard a couple of weeks ago Joe Schoen expressing confidence or not expressing confidence, but saying that Wan'Dale might be ready to go off a pup. Well, we didn't see Wan'Dale really start to run until this week. And he looked good, by the way, running. I mean, he looked like he was running fine. But it's kind of late at this point to bring him off a pup because you figure he's going to need a couple of weeks at least to get ramped up. and now you're rolling into the season, and do you really want to go that route, or do you say to yourself, look, we've got Hodgins, we've got Campbell, we've got Hyatt, we've got Slayton. Do we really need to rush Wan'Dale Robinson back when we can plug in either Beasley and or Shepard? So that's where I think, maybe they can afford to put Wan'Dale on inactive pup to start the season. But to your question about Beasley and Shepard, I could see both of them making it, but I think what could happen in the case of Shepard, and I've been writing this over on Giants Country, I've said it on my show, if the Giants need a roster spot for a guy that maybe they want to move to IR to start the season, I could see Shepard being a procedural move, which simply means that they'll cut him to give him, to give themselves a roster spot for a guy that they plan to move to IR, because the rule. The rule says that.
Yeah, they've done that with Casey Kreider in the past.
Exactly.
They could do that with Beasley as well, too.
Exactly. So they could do, because let's think about it, guys. First of all, Shepard and Beasley are vested veterans. So it's not like they got to go through waivers and the Giants got to worry about anybody claiming them. If another team comes out of the blue and says, hey, Shep, we want to sign you, or hey, Cole, we want to sign you, they could say no, especially if the Giants tell them, look, guys, we got to cut you for procedural purposes, but we're going to bring you back. That's why I always call this first round of cuts, I call it the initial 53, not the final 53, because it's not going to be final for a while.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they are able to get any guys off waivers being so low on the order. Yep. And we obviously saw them trade for Isaiah Simmons. All right, final question. What is your 2023 record prediction for the New York Giants?
You know what, guys? I know the Giants have a tougher schedule this year. I would not rule out 10 wins. I think realistically speaking, they're going to go 9-8, but I think they're going to win a game or a couple of games that they probably have no business winning. They will probably lose a game or two that they have no business losing. But I have such faith in this front office, in this coaching staff, the fact that they can now play better matchup football. I would not be stunned if they come out with 10 wins. But of course, it all starts in the division. I don't have to tell you that they have not won in the division or had a winning record against division opponents in quite some time. So that's where it starts for me. That's going to be what I use as the litmus test as to how far along this team has improved. But yeah, 10 wins. I could see 10 wins if everything falls into place and they stay healthy. It's, this coaching staff is just top notch, and I'm excited by the additions that they have.
Officially 10-7.
I'm going to say 10-7 officially. Yeah, I'll be optimistic about it.
Okay.
Maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I feel pretty good.
I don't really think that is like they're a lot better of a team right now than they were last year.
Sure.
So I am officially, and that's actually been the most popular one, has been 10-7. So it's not like you're saying anything outlandish. Where can people find your work, Patricia?
Yes, you can find me on the Locked On Giants podcast on YouTube. You can also find my written work over on giantscountry.com, which is part of Fan Nation, and SIs.com sports channel. So check me out there, and follow me on social media at Patricia_Traina on the social media site formerly known as Twitter. I think it's known as X now. And then over on Instagram, you can follow me at Patty Traina, PATTITRAINA. And I'm verified on both systems, so not hard to mix up who's who.
So I always say, like, well, all right, well, we'll see it when we see it, because we don't have interviews during the season for our podcast. But Justin, I was laying down last night and thinking about, what does our coverage look like if the Giants go to the Super Bowl? And I was like, oh, well, we'd have to have the reporters on in the off week and stuff like that. So I'm hoping we get to see you the first week of February, because I am at the phase with this New York Giants team where I'm thinking about that stuff at night. So
I think you have to. I mean, everything falls into place. I think you have to. And look, anytime you guys want to have me on, I'm always glad to come on. I love you guys. You do great work. I appreciate you coming on my show. I know I've had both of you on, separately. So yeah, I appreciate you.
All right. Well, we'll see you when we see you. I appreciate you, Patty.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Patty, for coming on the show. before we get out of here, we got to talk about DraftKings. You've waited all year, and it is week 0. The time has finally arrived. College football is back. And so are the traditions, the tailgates, and the great offers from DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any college football bet. By the way, Untold Stories, Florida Gate, Untold Stories, so out on that documentary series. Even though I enjoyed watching it, I enjoyed reliving that. So it's like, I enjoy it, but it's like, you guys just suck at your job. Kick off the season with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code WORLD. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any college football bet. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code WORLD. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In partnership with Hollywood Casino in Charlestown, races all games regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football turns. You'll be glad you did. Justin, I got really excited talking about the Super Bowl. I was like, you know what happened to me? It wasn't like this year we're going to the Super Bowl. I think we're going to be going to the Super Bowl soon. Like, I think it's going to happen. And I thought about my preview pod speech, what we do for content that week, everything. I'm telling you. I
texted you with the Super Bowl idea, and you came back with the really sassy reply with me.
What was your idea again?
I forget. It was for America's game. Whenever we win the Super Bowl, because you don't just go to the Super Bowl, you win it. That's what the Giants do. Forget 2000. That's what we do. So when there's America's game, I said that for the premiere, we should have a watch party. That was my idea to Bobby Skinner. You replied a very sassy, it's like, yeah, we'll do that when we win the Super Bowl. I felt the sarcasm coming through text.
It was sarcastic, so.
Yeah, and now it's like, and now you want me to kiss your feet because you're talking about
I didn't guarantee a win. I just think we're going to be there.
You can't talk about going to the Super Bowl and not be can't do that.
Full part of my argument is the NFC is now I do believe we'll win, but I'm not.
Can you imagine recording that podcast?
I even had it. We almost beat the Chiefs 2 years ago with Joe Judge and
stupid O'Shane Zimenez.
That's an episode. So go ahead.
We would have beat the Chiefs if it weren't for O'Shane Zimenez. Hope also everybody had a fun time at FanFest.
Yeah, I forgot about that. We'll be back. Right now. We'll be back with the pod recapping the preseason game on Sunday morning. We had 4 ads, so we couldn't get the Patreon this week, so we'll get that on the next pod. So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.